This breathtaking painting of the male body from 1778 is lying in an impossible position. It's meant to be a combination of shocking, exciting, and deeply moving as part of a historical love story. We'll explore all of that and more in this video about the ways the male body is depicted in art and what that meant across time and today. And if you've just seen Christopher Nolan's new movie, The Odyssey, well, get ready to understand the backstory more deeply by looking at this painting. Because the climax of the Trojan War that they didn't mention in the movie is actually the love of Greece's greatest warrior for another man and the avenging of his lover's death. But I'm getting slightly ahead of myself. Let's look carefully at this magnificent painting. Look at how he's lying, almost as if he's been thrown backwards. His back is arched, his ribs are thrust forward, and then his head is pushed a bit forward by the weight of the ground that it seems like he's hit. His limbs are slack in a way no standing model could ever hold on his own. His ankles are crossed as if they've been tied. His feet are anatomically perfect and yet still beautiful. He doesn't look posed, he looks almost dragged. And in a sense, he was. Art historians simply call this study Hector, the Trojan prince from the Iliad. It was painted by a 24-year-old French student in Rome, a painter who would become one of the greatest painters of all time, Jacques-Louis David. But the reason his body is sprawled like this has almost nothing to do with him. It's about the rage of the man who killed him, a rage so extreme that ancient readers themselves found it disturbing because of how much that man loved another man. Jacques-Louis David painted this while training at the French Academy in Rome, as part of a cluster of Trojan War studies he made that same year, including a companion piece showing Patroclus's funeral. It's what's called an académie, a solo nude study, and it now hangs at the Musée Fabre in Montpellier, France. That's in the south of France. Most of Jacques-Louis David's most epic works can be found in the Louvre. Let's look at this painting. Again, this pose is deliberately the hardest kind to paint. It's twisted, it's foreshortened, it's fully collapsed. It's a body caught at an exact moment of defeat. Poses like this modeled themselves on a specific antique tradition, the dying warrior, based on famous statues like the dying Gaul, a collapsed, twisted figure caught mid-death. It was considered harder to paint convincingly than any hero standing tall. But David wasn't just training his hand here. He was painting a specific, real ending to a classic story. In the Iliad, which is basically the prequel to the Odyssey, Homer's mythological epic that we've grown up with, in that story, after the hero Achilles kills Hector, seen here, the Trojan, in single combat, he then ties Hector's body to his chariot and drags it through the dirt around the walls of Troy for 12 straight days. This body, the one Jacques-Louis David painted here. But was David painting only death and anatomy? Although he did that superbly, I think he also painted desire and longing onto this body. And notice the one thing that isn't fully exposed. A small cloth is draped across him, even here in a private training exercise painted from a nude model. This wasn't modesty about nudity itself. Students were required to paint fully nude models. It was about what would happen to the image afterward. This was sent back to Paris for the Academy's jury to review. Every inch of this body could be studied and admired. Only one small part had to stay just barely covered to keep the whole thing safely on the side of art. But even the way Jacques-Louis David painted the cloth covering here, to me, is surprisingly anatomically suggestive. Oh, by the way, you don't have to just admire this masterpiece on your TV or computer screen. You can bring it into your own home. I've had this exact image reproduced in the highest quality available, fine art giclée printing, sturdy gallery canvas, or fully framed and always ready to hang. And no matter where you are in the world, shipping is completely free. The link is right below this video. If a story this old still says something true about love and loss and longing, this is your chance to actually own a piece of it. You can also find all of the other works from my Men in Art series in my store and many more thrilling masterpieces to take home. But this one, this painting is special because of why Hector was killed. Jacques-Louis David paints him as defeated, but I think David also paints onto him some of the longing and the pathos that was part of the male-male love story in the Iliad. So let me explain. Why did Achilles have that much rage towards Hector to have dragged him around the city of Troy behind a chariot? Why did he want to publicly humiliate him? Because Hector had just killed Achilles' closest companion, probably his lover, Patroclus. And whether that bond was more than friendship has been argued since antiquity itself. It's not just modern readers doing this. The playwright Aeschylus wrote them explicitly as lovers in the 5th century BC. Plato, the philosopher, has characters debate it directly in his Symposium. There's a Greek vase from around 500 BC showing Achilles tenderly bandaging Patroclus's wounds, and they're both very exposed in this painting. It's very vulnerable. Classicists routinely read this as intimate rather than merely camaraderie. When Patroclus dies, Achilles doesn't grieve quietly. That is not a matter of interpretation. That is right there in Homer's text. He becomes something closer to unstoppable, inconsolable. Even the god Apollo, inside the poem itself, calls what he does to Hector's body shameful. The ancient audience already sensed the punishment didn't match the crime. Instead, it matched the depth of the love. Jacques-Louis David did paint a companion piece to this. He painted Patroclus himself, the lover of Achilles. But Patroclus isn't exposed frontally like the defeated enemy Hector. Instead, he's turned away, his beauty facing us from behind. Perhaps David wanted to keep Patroclus's dignity, or to keep him for himself. That we will never know. But I explore all of that in my video about that painting, which you can also find here on my channel. Just click on the Men in Art playlist. So let's talk about how this painting of Hector shines light into the development of Jacques-Louis David, the painter, who would become one of the greatest painters of all of art history. Well, David was still a curious and experimenting young student when he painted this. He was training under France's most prestigious scholarship in Rome. 5 years later, he expanded this same dead body into the painting Andromache Mourning Hector, the painting that got him elected to the Academy Royale and launched his career. The body he studied in private as an exercise became the emotional center of the work that made him famous. There's something in this pose that itself pulls you in. A beautiful man lying helpless, tilted backward with nothing left to defend himself with. That vulnerability is part of what makes a body like this so hard to look away from. But imagine seeing this through older eyes. A gay man centuries ago looking at exactly this image. He'd likely feel two things at once. He'd feel moved, maybe even comforted, by a love so overwhelming that it drove Achilles half out of his mind with grief. Proof that a man's love for another man could be the largest, most consuming thing in an entire epic. And in that same breath, he'd feel something colder. That if the wrong person ever learned what he carried in his own heart, he could end up exactly like this, dragged through the street for everyone to see, punished in public, for a love he was never allowed to name out loud. The beauty and the fear were never completely separate in that time. They came from the same place. If you loved this video, I hope to hear from you in the comment section. I still read them all myself. I love your suggestions and even your insights into things that I might have missed. I really hope you check out my store. It's a great way to support this channel, but more importantly, I hope you chime in and stick around. See you soon as we pursue the history of men in art.